Falcons took one step closer to the 1983 National Basketball League playoffs with a fairly unimpressive 97-94 victory over the visiting Tasmanian team Devonport, who until last night had only won one game in the National Basketball League season for 1983. The only player that asserted any authority on the match was Big George Morrow for the Falcons, as he pulled in 18 rebounds and shot 24 points. Next week at home they play Coburg, a team that's in form at the moment, and the Falcons' defence and attack will have to improve immeasurably for them to have a chance of beating the Victorians.
I think you could say that, Lee, but it's a very dangerous practice.
Thanks, John, and good morning. We start with Rugby League this morning, and Macquarie United's Neville Elwyn, already chosen in the state squad for the upcoming State of Origin matches, can confirm a spot in that team proper should he play well tonight in the KB Cup game at Leichhardt Oval. Elwyn is a member of the country team that will oppose South Sydney. Curry's captain coach Rick Patrick and Western Suburbs youngster Peter Johnston are also members of the country team, rated as a strong chance for tonight's encounter. And out of soccer, and Brighton and Hove Albion's Jimmy Melia, he's the manager, has a king-size headache in naming his team for Friday morning our time, the replay of the FA Cup final. With injured fullback Chris Ramsey expected to be fit and suspended captain Steve Foster now available, Melia has to decide which of his heroes to leave out of the side. Brighton were caught, fell behind but equalised to go into extra time, then were unlucky not to win the FA Cup final, but still they are rated as the underdogs for the replay. We'll have the live action at 4:15 a.m. on Friday morning our time and a replay at 10:30 at night. To motor racing now, and the practice sessions for the Indianapolis 500 to be run next Sunday night have been ended prematurely by rain. Up-and-coming Italian Teo Fabi has emerged fastest in his first year at Indy.
Rain hampered the time trials at Indy, and this weekend the drivers were literally racing through the raindrops. Dennis Firestone qualified for the field of 33 Sunday afternoon with a speed of 190.888 miles per hour, barely finishing ahead of a rainstorm that would have washed him out.
Well, it started pouring on me down the back straightaway and going into turn 3, and I said, oh my God, I got to get through this lap somehow.
That rain ended the qualifiers, so when they start out May 29th, the pole position will belong to rookie Teo Fabi. Veteran Mike Mosley has the number 2 spot. Four-time winner A.J. Foyt will start in the number 24 position.
The British are coming. That's the furling around Newport, Rhode Island, where Britain has arrived with an $8 million challenge for the America's Cup. While since the war Australia has been the traditional favourite to challenge the United States, the dark horse is now Britain, so they say. They're determined to win the Cup, which was once, after all, in their keeping.
Newport hasn't seen the like of this before. The British coming in not as gallant losers, but with the determination, the ability, and perhaps the means to win. The Victory 83 is one of 7 challenges for the Cup held by the United States for 132 years. The other contenders will follow, but the British were here first with the best backup, a team 80 strong and an investment of $8 million. As to where that's come from, the answer lies across the dock in the luxury yacht Charisma, once owned by Richard Burton, now the Newport headquarters of Peter de Savary, the Bahamas-based financier who's trying to snare the America's Cup with part of his private fortune.
I was here in 1980 and felt sorry that Britain didn't do very well and had not done very well since the war, and I was quite sure that we could put together a challenge and come over here and show that when Britain really tries with the best of its resources, we are winners.
We're under the Newport Bridge here in choppy seas and a wind of 20 knots. The art of match racing with 12-meter yachts is very much the art of starting, as they circle each other, trying to steal one another's wind. And the 2 yachts here both belong to Mr. de Savary's syndicate. This week, they'll be joined by a third. His challenger, Victory 83, is racing against Australia, the Australian entry 3 years ago, which the British bought to race and test their own yacht against in the run-up to the qualifying races.
A Newcastle rugby union team managed by the district president Jack Scott will leave today for the tour of New Zealand, and we wish them all the best. And now for some great vision from the World Gymnastic Championships.
Pressure on that move?
Oh, not really. Oh, not really. The performance of the defence made my job a lot easier. Mainly the two English imports, and Howard Tredenik's been playing fantastic now that Ralph Myers moved out. Mike Bogart's coming to the side and he's playing well as well.
Clint, you've got one of the best defensive records in the league at the moment. That's why KB are on top of the ladder. You mentioned before the backline. Obviously very, very important as part of your job to have them firing.
Seeing they're playing so well this year takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the side, especially the forwards. They don't have to keep scoring goals because we're letting them in. This year we're not letting them in, so they can stick them in when they like.
Clint, you've got one of your biggest tests coming up this weekend, this Sunday, against Sydney Olympic in Sydney. How do you think you'll fare?
Well, they're the only side that's beaten us this year, but we've got a pretty settled side now, and I think we'll beat them.
The South Maitland railway system has struggled to survive advancing technology and rising costs for some years now. But it was still something of a shock to the 90-odd employees to learn that the days of steam are to finally end on June the 10th. Begun in the 1890s, the privately owned railway network once served more than 30 collieries. Now only Aberdare North and Pelton mines have their coal hauled by the chunky steam locos which date back to 1911. The company still has 14 Manchester-made locomotives which over the years have been reconditioned in South Maitland Railway's own workshop. The railway's been a mecca for steam train enthusiasts from all parts of Australia and overseas, and its closure will mark the end of the largest commercial steam train operation in Australia. Some employees will be retained to maintain the line, but with the impending sale of the locomotives, job prospects for the majority appear bleak.
In days of space travel and computers and silicon chips, the amazing thing about the South Maitland Railway is that it's still here today. But when those boilers are finally cold, there will be some sadness, because it will be the end of an era.
Good afternoon. Well, fishing should be quite good this weekend. We've got an offshore wind blowing, and that means that if you're going outside, just watch the bar. They could be a little bit tricky. There's a bit of a groundswell on at the moment. The outside fishing, I would suggest, should be done as close as possible to the rocks. Once you get out too far past the land cover, the swell gets pretty big and choppy and very uncomfortable. The fishing off the rocks has been generally poor because of the rough weather, but I had a report of a good snapper being taken, 6 kilos last night. Bruce Winning caught that down on the southern end of Dudley Rocks, and also some good pigs were being caught down Merriweather Bards. Pigs, that's rock blackfish. You'll find that as this sea starts to drop off a bit, the brim, drummer, snapper will move in fairly close to the rocks and try to forage on the food that's been washed off into there. Also, the river itself has been going fairly well with crabs, believe it or not. There's been reports of 60s and 80s caught with witches' hats. A bit unseasonal, but that's fishing. Apparently there's enough feed or whatever to start the crabs off again, and they're getting good catches. Also, blackfish would be, I'd say, one of the better bets around the close shore areas on the rocks. Also in the estuary. Swansea Channel, a lot of good bream being taken there. Also some excellent catches of blackfish and a few scattered reports of big whiting. That's about it. I'd suggest probably a good weekend for fishing. Good afternoon.
Is this the last chance for the theatre company, or if it doesn't work this time, will that be the end?
Determined that the Hunter Valley Theatre Company will survive this year and next year and every other year from now on.
Alderman Robertson, do you think the people of the Hunter Valley really want their own theatre company?
I'm convinced they do, because of the meeting that we had last Sunday. There was no bitterness about having closed. All of the bitterness of closing last September seemed to have disappeared, and there was a common purpose with those people interested in theatre to make it survive. I think that we've been beset by this terrible thing of wanting to raise money all the time, and if we can conquer this $100,000 debt and get the support of the state and the federal government, and I'm sure we will, we'll go on from strength to strength.
This is what the Western Suburbs Leagues Club will look like in 12 months' time. The second story will cost the club $2.5 million and will provide a new auditorium, a dining room, a large mixed bar and a modernised bistro for its members. Today the builders R.W. Black and club executives signed the contracts. Secretary-Manager Mr Bob Ferris says the club has shed the shackles of depression and decided to expand in preparation for the good times to come.
The board feels that it's necessary in today's climate. We feel that if we're not advanced, when the recession ends, we will again fall behind. We want to be there and we want to be fighting when everything comes equal.
You seem to be one of the few clubs that is extending during this period.
Yeah, well, the best thing about clubs is that they're all separate and they all have their own ideas. We believe the decision we've made will benefit our members and our club.
And there is more. In a letter to Mr Alan Morris, MP, the Finance Minister goes on to say, a few years after it, meaning the Taxation Office, is open, it will be of similar size to the office at Parramatta and that planned at Chatswood, about 800 employees. The announcement has been seized upon by the three main groups fighting to have a taxation office established in Newcastle. The Chamber of Commerce, the Council and the Hunter Development Board have waged a war on the heads of the Taxation Department since it was announced that an office would be established in Chatswood to look after the Hunter region. Mr Peter Evans from the Chamber of Commerce and representatives from the two other bodies are in Sydney today meeting with two top taxation commissioners from Canberra and Sydney. The trio has produced a documentary aimed at attracting enough Sydney taxation officials to start up an office in Newcastle. It's called An Extra Hour's Living, which draws comparisons with the Sydney sider who spends most of his life in traffic snarls. Over the next 4 weeks, the search for these potential Newcastle residents is on. Those who have worked so hard at convincing tax officials that Newcastle needs its own office are thrilled with Mr Dawkins' announcement.
It's great to get it in writing, and we now have it in writing, and the Minister for Finance, Mr Dawkins, has said quite positively in his letter that a full processing office will be established in Newcastle. It may take a little time, depending on the result of our survey.
That's it. They have said that it is their intention to establish an office, but they haven't said when.
That's correct. They've said it's their absolute intention to have one, and I think it will really depend on the result of this survey we're presently putting together for the various appropriate key staff to come from Sydney.
Last month, the Minister for Water Resources, Mr Wheeland, announced plans by the Water Board to release public land under its authority for private development. The board had identified 20 sites throughout the region, ranging from 1 hectare to the 4,000 hectares of lake and foreshores at Grahamstown. This site has attracted quite a deal of interest. A Water Board spokesman says inquiries have been made by developers and other outside interested parties who are thinking along the lines of sport and entertainment complexes here. The board says a cross-section of people, from local sporting groups to large interstate developers, have inquired about the release of land. Sites such as Burwood Beach are also earmarked by the board, but perhaps this is some way off. The Walker Waterworks near Maitland is one site the board is trying to promote. This charming piece of heritage was built in 1892 and acquired by the Water Board years later. It was one of the main water supply works before Chichester was built in the 1920s. The Walker site stretches across 65 hectares of countryside. Unfortunately, all the old pipes and equipment inside the building were used for scrap years ago. That part of history is gone, but hopefully this part won't disappear from lack of interest. The Water Board's main aim in opening up these areas is to attract the tourist dollar to Newcastle. Submissions are still being received by the board until the end of the month. In July, interested parties will have the chance to get together and discuss their ideas in detail at a seminar and series of on-site inspections to be held by the board.
Well, obviously I'm very excited. I mean, they're top of the ladder, and I just hope that when I leave in 6-7 games' time that they're still there, really.
While in Newcastle, Shannon will play 7 feature matches with KB United, starting on Saturday in the game against Sydney Olympic at the International Sports Centre. The former international is looking forward to joining KB again, and he's not worried about having to put on a good performance. Why?
I've always been very confident in my own ability, and I believe that I know what I'm doing, so I don't consider the pressure on me. I mean, the team are playing well. I'll go in and playing in a team that's playing well is obviously a lot easier than going in a team that's struggling. And last time I came here, the day I arrived, the manager got sacked, and that was a good start. And we really, the players pull together when there's a bit of a crisis, and we done that then, and I think that we carry on from that because they've got a very good team spirit at the moment. And I think that we can carry on from there, and let's hope we can beat Sydney.
So it's good to be back in Newcastle.
And now to other sports news with Lee Morn.
Well, while we're still on soccer, England has won the British Soccer Championship by beating Scotland 2-0 at the famous Wembley ground. Robson and Cowans scored for the home team.
England, aggressive and impressive from the start, went ahead after only 12 minutes when Butcher flicked on Sansom's throw for captain Brian Robson to score. However, Robson's celebrations were soon curtailed when he limped off injured to be replaced by Gary Mabbott. But with Glenn Hoddle at last showing some delightful skills, England's rhythm was hardly interrupted. They went 2 up in the second half and could have had several more. Lee was denied by an offside decision, much to his own disbelief. Scotland rarely attacked with conviction. Strachan made the best chance, but Shilton proved unbeatable. Another cracking shot, this time from Roberts, underlined England's dominance as they carried off the British title in style.
So the Poms get up against the Scottish, and that'll please a lot of people. It has been called the toughest ultra-marathon run in the world, but it still attracted more than 6,000 runners to the start in Durban, South Africa.
The 80-kilometre race is run each year in alternate directions. This year it was uphill from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, a climb of over 1,600 metres. 6,000 to 650 competitors started, but it was Bruce Fordyce who emerged the winner of the gruelling event in a record time of 5 hours, 30 minutes and 12 seconds. His nearest rival, Graham Fraser, was 15 minutes behind.